Every material object has extension in space, and so it has parts. Has anyone ever seen a single thing? Not really. A single thing is a mental concept more than it is a physical one. My presentation will be in two main parts. One is the authenticity of the Urantia book, and I've elaborated that in Appendix A, which provides a repeatable statistical test. I will only be going through about 7 subsections of that. I'm not going to take you through individual examples, 47 of them, but I want to show how this test was designed, and that I think is important. The second part will be the title, and so I guess I better move along. So let's talk about the skepticism of the authenticity. We have been asked these questions. Have the new scientific discoveries converged to what is in the 1955 Urantia book? Is the Urantia book communication or revelation from higher order life? And many soon to be discovered scientific facts about to be recognized, minority scientific positions that the Urantia book in 1955 predicted have now been corroborated by contemporary science. To use the Urantia book's own words, the Urantia book cosmology is not inspired, but of immense value, as it authoritatively corrects errors, coordinates about to be known facts, fills in vital missing gaps, and resurrects lost human knowledge of long ago events. Appendix A utilizes these UB corrections of errors as admitted now by contemporary science and statements about the soon to be discovered facts, now known, to statistically show that the Urantia book authors must have had superhuman knowledge. The Urantia book could not have been written by human authors with only the best human knowledge of the time. The probability of human authors at the time randomly taking such minority positions turns out to be less than one chance in a trillion. I've got 47 examples, and of that, the Urantia book turns out to be wrong on 7 by contemporary science standards and right on 40. So they're just minuscule chance that could be by accident. And I want to explain how that worked and how it is working. So when you have a statistical test, you start with the null hypothesis. And, the Urantia book was authored by human beings. And the alternate is that the Urantia book was not authored by human beings. Well, what do I mean by authorship? Here, I mean that the choice of text and the editorial control of the 1955 first edition, and that they had this, and we know by the history of the forum that they were changing things and reacting to questions. I want to make the point that while never word for word, the Urantia book authors acknowledge without specific attribution the use of the writings of thousands of human authors to express the facts and truths mandated by their superiors for revelation to our world. So, what's the definition of the population for this test? It consists of well-established present day, as of, well, September 15th, the last time I wrote on this, scientific statements for which the following are all true. The statement contains present day, well-established information that only a minority of a third or less of the scientists espoused prior to 1955. I use that date because that's the publication date, and I don't need to go back any further. A majority of 2/3 or more of the scientists were mistaken or had no idea. Call these reversal statements of contemporary science, basically examples of science changing its mind or unexpectedly learning something new. Secondly, the Urantia Book, 1955, makes a definite statement concerning the now scientifically accepted information. And thirdly, these reversal statements are probabilistically independent of one another. So that's the definition of the population of the test. Now, next thing we need is an unbiased sample of that population. Ideally, the whole population of reversal statements could be the sample. I'm sure there are many more reversal statements that could be identified. This is an ongoing process as contemporary science continues to change its mind. Skeptics of the superhuman authorship are encouraged to offer new examples of reversal statements that the Urantia Book did or did not get right by today's contemporary science standards. So it's an ongoing process that can be regularly updated as new scientific discoveries and reversal statements are made. A little judgment has to be used here. What is a well-established reversal statement? For instance, there's probably 2/3 or of all of the scientists are of the opinion that life emerged from non-living matter with no superhuman involvement. But there's no scientific evidence of that. It's not a scientifically well-established fact. The fact that electrical stimulation of simple atoms and compounds can produce more complex ones, but non-living hydrocarbons that are essential to living beings, that doesn't prove that life emerged randomly. It's just an opinion. So I wouldn't include that one in the sample. Now, for each reversal statement, there is a historical record of the percentage of authors who published the present-day understanding prior to 1955. Expressed as a fraction, this is an estimate of the probability that a human author would espouse the present contemporary understanding. Say that probability is p. 1 minus p is the probability that a human author at the time would be mistaken. So we can simplify this evidence to make the test simpler to perform and to estimate the probabilities. Since the evidence for superhuman authorship is so strong, we can simplify the estimation of the error probability of each individual reversal statement without increasing the probability of falsely rejecting the null hypothesis, which is human authorship. So that means the significance level of the test is the probability of falsely rejecting the null hypothesis will not be diminished. If anything, it'll be increased. So that means it will not bias the sample, but will greatly simplify the historical data collection as to what fraction of authors were espousing the truth versus what we now understand. If we restrict the population to all and only those scientific reversal statements for which, according to present-day contemporary science and scientific knowledge, 2/3 or more of the scientific opinions expressed in 1955 were wrong, and only 1/3 or less espoused the present contemporary scientific understanding. So we won't be dealing with any 50-50 questions. The probability of human failure for each reversal statement can be taken as 2/3, even when the fraction of human authors who expressed the false opinion was much greater. For instance, there were over 500 scholarly writings about the Piltdown Man. Almost no one expressed skepticism about the double fossil hoax until the 1950s, after plates of the 1955 Urantia book were fixed. So this will give the null hypothesis of human authorship any benefit in likelihood due to this simplification. With those above simplifications, the statistical test can be done using a binomial distribution with the probability of failure equaling 2/3 for each of the reversal statements. We can think of this test as rolling an ordinary six-sided die having numbers 1 through 6 on its faces. The number of rolls n of the die will be the number of independent reversal statements. And for any reversal statement, the human error will be represented by the die faces with numbers 1, 2, 3, or 4. The faces 5 or 6 will represent the correct human statements. So it's a binary distribution, and the probability of getting X failures in n tosses of a die with 2/3 probability of failure on each toss is given by the well-known binomial distribution. And in the diagram here, n is 47. So if 2/3 of the time you're supposed to get 1, 2, 3, or 4, and 1/3 of the time 5 or 6, the probability of getting is that you'll get something like 30 or 31 or 32 failures. And the probability of getting less than 20 looks like it disappears. And what we got was 7 failures. So it's an astronomically low probability of getting so few failures in that kind of a situation. So the conclusion is the amount of superhuman scientific knowledge imparted in the Urantia book was carefully designed to be of immense value, but not inspired. And by filling in some gaps in our knowledge, telling us about our own history, providing an authoritative elimination of some errors, providing some soon-to-be-discovered science, and coordinating little-known human knowledge, the Urantia book proves its authenticity while also providing a better cosmological context in which to understand the spiritual revelation of the Urantia book, including a retelling and an expansion of the life and teachings of Jesus. For some folks, this simple statistical test will not be enough of a reason to believe in the Urantia book as an actual book of revelation from God. Our fellow believers, the Jews, the Christians, Muslims, are free to imagine that Lucifer and Satan are trying to deceive them with this superhuman information. They said, Jesus was doing his miraculous work by the power of Beelzebub. So people are free to reject the statistical test, and they can reject the Urantia book. Well, what about some other things that are still to be discovered? And important cosmological corrections that are still to be made. One is reinterpreting the cosmic redshift. By misinterpreting the cosmic redshift, the electromagnetic wave patterns, as recession velocity, contemporary science still clings to a Big Bang origin of the cosmos. just 13.8 billion years ago. Contemporary science needs to find the cosmic center. Still assumes a centerless cosmos of absolute relativity as envisioned by Albert Einstein, who believed that every position in space can be considered fixed with respect to motions of other bodies. An absolutely fixed center called paradise does not exist. The idea of now is relative to which cosmic position is considered fixed. But Kurt Gödel found solutions with a fixed center around which everything orbits. Maybe I'm exaggerating that a little bit. Everything circled around its compass of inertia. But I think it's a small step to make everything rotate, orbit around the center of all of these things. Another thing that needs to be done is defining simultaneity. The chronal decks keep track of the paradise day. And finally, finding the directions up above paradise and down below paradise. We're still waiting for those kind of new discoveries. All right, moving on to the second phase or second part of this presentation, quantum entanglement and the idea of one. Newton's instantaneous gravity worked quite well in predicting the future positions of the planets. And more recently, physicists and philosophers have been trying to avoid what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. Well, both Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein found it unreasonable to assume that influence between spatially far distant objects without some agency that is connected to both. And Newton's theory of gravity assumed a sort of instantaneous attraction between far distant objects. So this more recently discovered phenomenon of quantum entanglement has brought this issue to a head. Let me read this because I think it's important to understand what this phenomena is like and how it's produced. A sequence of particles, each one successively split into two subparticles going in different directions, can be made to exhibit paired measurement correlations of their spin directions along axes that cannot be explained without assuming some kind of faster than light speed connection exists between those simultaneous distant measurements. This cosmic connectivity is the behavior of physical objects across vast distances in space seems quite mysterious, as Einstein called it, spooky action at a distance. Well, however, the cosmos is not merely an aggregation of space-separated parts. Rather, the parts are qualifications of the one original whole. Mathematically, this is algebraically expressed by what are called quotient spaces. An initial infinite universe, call it omega, is divided or qualified into parts. Think of clock arithmetic. The non-negative integers count the hours, but as you go around, you get to 12 and then you don't go to 13, you go to 1. And you go to 14 and that's actually 2. And you keep going around, so, the hours are unlimited, but you keep getting the same number on the clock. So you end up with 12 infinite cosets, and you can add them and multiply them and subtract them and in normal ways. So this is a quotient space of the positive or non-negative integers. So objects separated in space are still merely qualifications of the one self-aware whole cosmos. Two places in space are still connected to this one whole, and so to each other. And since the whole reacts to local acts, that reaction can instantly be manifested non-locally. Waves of pre-mass energy within this whole could be responsible for faster than light interactions. And there's a physicist, David Bohm, who conceived of how this might be done with guiding waves. It's a model of quantum mechanics propounded by David Bohm, and it works just as well as the one we have now, without the present notions that they're trying to explain quantum entanglement by. For me, quantum entanglement is a demonstration of faster than light influences in the body of the whole. So Einstein's concept of relativity should be expanded to include both the infinite whole and the many parts. There is an infinite whole, a unified whole that includes everything. And by making qualifications, differentiations of this whole, all cosmic parts can be defined. But they will still be parts of the one whole. This is also more like a creative genesis. Space is not an absolute separation of objects within it. Objects and their distances in space are simply qualifications of the infinite whole. Viewed in this light, spooky action at a distance becomes a manifestation of the oneness of total reality. If this seems rather esoteric, pause to consider that even a single part of the universe is esoteric. Has anyone ever seen a single thing? Not really. Every material object has extension in space, and so it has parts. It is the idea of one that is applied to a part of the cosmos as though it is a single thing. A single thing is a mental concept more than it is a physical one. And note that religious deity is best grasped by mind as a unified threesome, a trinity. And it is a property of mind to frame qualifications and to unify qualifications of everything. Everything is not really a single thing. Mind unifies the multiplicity into a whole, a unit, and assigns a meaning to it. Spin is a fundamental phenomenon in the universe, both as a macro phenomenon as well as a micro phenomenon. Something called gravity holds both galaxies and spinning particles together. The alternate solutions of Albert Einstein's general field equations, discovered by Kurt Gödel, are rotating universe solutions, in which matter everywhere rotates relative to its compass of inertia with the angular velocity that I've written there, where r is the mean density of the matter and k is Newton's gravitational constant. So this was chosen by Gödel to exactly balance the gravitational attraction toward the compass center of inertia of the rotating body. Albert Einstein thought a universe with a center, and so a preferred coordinate system, would not be ethically or aesthetically pleasing. But the great logician Gödel may have imagined a macroscopically and a microscopically rotating universe. Let's talk about the center of the cosmos. With the guidance of the Urantia Book revelation, we can see farther than Einstein. Paradise is an ellipsoidal surface whose periphery can be approached from the so-called mid-space zones inside, around, and encompassing the moving zones. Paradise is the fixed center and the logical origin of a fixed coordinate system for the cosmos. So, can we find this center? We also are told that paradise is the nucleus of each ultimate unit of matter, and that 100 of these ultimatons form one electron. So, paradise is said to be the largest organized body in the cosmos. And roughly speaking, space is just below paradise, time just above. Paradise is said to be located at the non-spatial focus of space. Topologically, this means there is a fixed surface that is approachable from the so-called relatively non-moving mid-space zones existing around, within, and between the relatively rapidly spinning zones of space matter. Light is said to originate from this fixed place. It therefore does not carry the motion of the particles that seem to emit it. And in this topology of space, the direction toward the nucleus of an ultimaton is in the direction up, since all space is roughly below paradise. Space would seem to be between paradise and the space-pervading unqualified absolute, said to be focused in the nether or underside of ellipsoidal surface of paradise. Well, this is all better conceived when the reality of our observer-observed relationship, personal viewpoints of the whole, is recognized and made fundamental to all science and philosophy. Reality must be defined in terms of someone's personal experience or observation, such as the viewpoint of a scientist or a philosopher. A personal viewpoint requires a personal mind, with an outer sensory and an inward self-conscious view. So what is reality? For the individual human mind, it is the outside sensory world of space and the inward self-conscious world of meaning, spiritual values, and moral ideals that characterize human selves. These observing selves, with mental viewpoints of the outer world and mental loyalties to an inner spiritual world, are the joint experiential basis of human reality. Well, persons can perceive good and bad. As personal minds, we can distinguish between good and bad. We can distinguish between events that we can choose versus those for which we have no control. From the point of view of finite mind, the absolute one is both an infinite unit and also an infinite multiplicity. One must be manifest both as transcending all macroscopic space and also as indwelling each individual particle of matter. How can one do that, you may ask? Well, relative to the finite, the one is absolute. Even the separation of space is not absolute. With respect to physics, we can distinguish between space and all of that which is non-space, realities like mass, motion, mind, and spirit. We can distinguish living from non-living beings. These personal minds can choose to change space by utilizing inward spirit energy that is outside the material universe. And in this way, persons have some degree of free will. They escape complete antecedent physical causality. The inner-outer aspect of personal observation is the basic unit of the knowing cosmos. Like Plato's image of men forced to look forward at a wall and interpret its shadowy reality, what is out there is just a shadow of the light in here, behind our individual consciousness. If individual human minds are part of a central mind that shares self-consciousness, then mind is focal, even pointing to the viewpoint of an infinite mind. Is that not the topology of total reality? Minds observing the infinite one and the infinite one observing us minds. The cosmos is a personal view of personal viewpoints of matter, space, mind, and spirit. To summarize, the whole has distinguished parts that are coordinated and correlated with each other by virtue of its unity, its divinity. That which is common to every individual material thing, at all times and even without time, the Urantia Book calls paradise. The Isle of Paradise, quoting, is non-personal and extra-spiritual, being the essence of the universal body, the source and center of physical matter, and the absolute master pattern of universal material reality. Paradise is the nucleus of every ultimate material unit. The first measurable particles, the ultimatons, make up electrons and other subatomic particles. Every ultimate material particle spins about an absolute surface of paradise. Paradise, therefore, it must be dense in space, without being in space, such as irrational numbers, which are non-fractions, are dense in the number line of fractions without being a fraction. Dense means you can't find a minimum distance in which you can't find another irrational number. If you're a fraction, there's always an infinite number of irrational numbers as close as you please to it. Space is part of the whole, which also includes non-space, such as matter, energy, motion, spirit, mind, spirit values. Space is the absolutely ultimate qualification of the unqualified absolute. The Urantia Book tells of two kinds of paradise transcendental force organizers, starting with the primordial space forces released by the unqualified absolute. The primary kind is responsible for imparting the initial force orbits around the macroscopic focus of space. Their associates then transcendentally condense these gravity-responsive force energies into the galactic and axial rotations of the ultimate material units of matter about their paradise or nucleus. How, you may ask, can paradise be the nucleus of each ultimate unit of spinning matter and also be the center of the macroscopic cosmos? Well, it does require a space topology that includes one macro, non-spatial, non-temporal paradise focus, plus a pattern of microfoci pervading space around which spin the space energies of the cosmos. It's mathematically possible. Kurt Gödel showed that. Paradise is the center of each thing as well as the center of all. Material motion in space exists between paradise and another paradise. We are told that it will require seven-dimensional space, a seven-dimensional space topology to combine absolute, relative, and finite evolutionary realities. Here's a diagram that I produced a long time ago, but I want to point out this, this part here that says this is believed to be, and this is a quote, the central focalization the paradise center of the space presence of the unqualified absolute. So somehow the nether part of paradise is a presence in space. And at the same time, paradise itself is at the nucleus of all of these things, these particles. Paradise area. The surfaces of paradise transcend space and time. But what is called its periphery can be located from space as the static focal limiting surface, approachable from the relatively non-moving zones existing within and between and encompassing the relatively rapidly spinning energy zones. The surfaces of paradise form a dense pattern in space, although they are not actually in space. Actually, paradise surfaces can pervade space like irrational numbers can pervade the number line of fractions without being one. And by the way, the irrational points, they also carry all the measure or length of the line, because the countably infinite set of fractions on the number line each have a zero length and therefore have a total length of zero. You can put them in a sequence and each one has a zero length. So therefore the total of all the fractions has zero length. The length has to be somewhere, and it's in the irrational numbers. Absolute gravity attraction is the presence circuit of paradise that operates to cohere the parts of matter while being balanced by circular motion in space. According to George Park, absolute gravity is like the resultant gravity attraction at any point interior to a sphere of constant mass density toward the center, and with a magnitude directly proportional to the distance from the center. This is one of Isaac Newton proved that result for such a sphere as a consequence of linear gravity being the mutual attraction F between any two bodies of mass, M1 and M2, approximately according to his inverse square law. So paradise being everywhere present at the focus of space and its bodies, there is apparently no time lag of gravity attraction between space-separated bodies, just an attenuation of the magnitude of attractive force. So the cosmic view of personal viewpoints is the center of observed realities. There must be a cosmic mind, no less sophisticated than human mind. There must be a central mind of the cosmos observing space, the idea of God. There is a cosmic center of matter, mind, and personal spirit reality. Paradise, one of the seven absolutes, has an upper spiritual plane and a nether or material plane, and is the focus of the four gravity attractive forces of matter, mind, spirit, and personality. In an observed circular cosmos, the center can represent the omnipresent infinite whole one, which we can know as our universal Father, the first source and center.
All right, Phil, thank you very much. Okay, Jeff is going to lead off our discussion. So, Jeff, take it away.
Well, I find it absolutely fascinating that so many of the presenters so far are suggesting very similar paradigms, but from very different perspectives. I love the idea of the macroscopic, microscopic universe. I tend to think of that as a holographic universe. You break a holographic plate, the same image of the whole plate is in each of the fragments. So if you think of the fragment as the automaton of the whole plate, it's a kind of just different visualization. You mentioned early on in the presentation that that when you're doing the statistical analysis of, what's the probability of getting that many things correct after this many years? And two things. One, I've got a bunch of predictions in my presentation as well. Maybe we should throw those into the mix,
Sure.
the ones that aren't quite what yours are. The other one is that it's almost as important what they left out or what they corrected in the presentation. And I wonder if there's a statistical way to analyze that subtle variation. I love the concept of paradise and the ultimaton, and ways of looking at that as different dimensions of the same thing. Anyway, excellent presentation. Thank you. I hope you'll bring some of those questions to my presentation as well. Thank you.
Okay, Tom.
Hey, Phil.
Hey,
What a great job, my friend. I've really learned a lot. Thanks a lot. We know that the cosmology of the Urantia book is going to cause trouble for the future. Now, I'm wondering if that is something that your null hypothesis is seeking to help out with when the time comes when we're going to get rained down on in the future with the problems between current science and the Urantia book. What are your thoughts about that?
well, I think that by choosing these reversal statements, so that we're not trying to say that everything that is contemporary science says now the Urantia book is corroborating, or vice versa, but rather just focusing on where science has changed their minds. And now, if you can show that, and I agree, we can add more examples. I didn't spend a whole lot of time adding more examples because I think it was more important to design, explain how the test is designed, and it can be added to more examples. But I mean, it's a little hard to deny that the Urantia book seemed to choose some that we were about to figure out, or they supplied some gap, something that had a gap in our knowledge that we'd already had most of, and so they did it in such a way that it didn't predict the next 1,000 years of progress, but it did provide something of immense value by telling us about the past events we'd forgotten, but we knew at one point, telling us about some errors, and I might, so if we just focus on how the statistical test is proves that whoever came up with the Urantia book had to have some superhuman information. It's going to be hard to deny that, even if, well, for instance, right now we have the Big Bang. Well, they didn't change their mind about that. So that's not part of the population. When they change their mind about it, it's going to be part of the population, and it'll be corroborated by the Urantia book. Another example, and I almost put this in as appendix 2, is that the existence of a fixed center, that they tell us how to find it, and then there is also a standard time, the paradise day. That's going to change the theory of the relativity I mean, the Urantia book corroborates Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, by saying that the mass lost by a body when it emits a particle of energy E is the amount E divided by the square of the speed of light. That they corroborate. But they don't corroborate the notion that somehow time itself can't be standardized. So then, for instance, there's no concept of simultaneity in Einstein's absolute relativity. So there's no way to talk about eternity or now. But if we have a center that's fixed, we can then define distances and directions, and the paradise day, the amount of motion, well, the time, time is really basically a comparison of one motion or event with another motion. And the motion that has been established as a standard is the paradise day. They gave these times very accurately so that there is a standard, and the chronodex will tell us what time it is in a paradise day. So that means that the concept of simultaneity is easily defined. There is a standard for time. It's not just, and even though some processes can be made faster, like the wine at the Feast of Cana, or some other kind of motion. Maybe the clocks that orbit the Earth have to be updated because they keep losing time. They keep circling slower, but that doesn't mean all time stops or is being distorted. It's just that particular process is happening faster or maybe slower. But it doesn't mean there's no standard for time. There is, I think.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Let's ask, George, I'll get to you in just a second. Let's ask one question from the audience. What is your view on quantum entanglement explaining the phenomenon of reflectivity?
Reflectivity seems to extend throughout the cosmos, and they say, we can know what's happening and see what's happening a long way off. And entanglement is just another example of that. So yeah, I think that reflectivity somehow utilizes the fact that paradise is, very close to everything.
Okay, all right, George, take it away.
That's a fascinating idea you present, that paradise is at the center of the universe and at the center of every ultimatum. I can't visualize that in my own head, so I'm comparing it to sort of the non-Euclidean geometry of the Big Bang, where every location in the universe is the center of expansion. Now, we're not talking about expansion. I'm just talking about the non-Euclidean nature of the geometry that you seem to be talking about. Am I interpreting what you're saying correctly?
I think so. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a it's a topology that is not anything like what we are presently envisioning, because paradise somehow, think about it, they say that space originates just below paradise, roughly, and time just above. And somehow or other, the unqualified absolute pervades space, all space, and it's focused in another paradise, on the outside zone of another paradise. So space seems to be between paradise and the unqualified absolute, or something like that. And we're going to think we need 7 dimensions in order to really have a concept of the whole cosmos of matter, mind, and spirit and personality. And it helps me to think of it with the idea that reality for us is always a reality of someone's view, observation. It doesn't just exist out there and we're not in it.
Right.
The observer is part of the observed. And so when you think about reality in that frame, it opens up some other, potential dimensions.
You just mentioned the seven-dimensional universe. I'm wondering, do you think that has anything to do with 7 different types of time? In other words, space and time go together. So if space changes, doesn't time have to change as well?
Well, they do say that time measures space, not the other way around.
Right.
So I think that time is, the standard time is how long it takes for the inner circuit to go around, paradise, the inner circuit of Havona. And apparently that's just short of 1,000 of our years. So they make it pretty clear that they have a way of measuring time that's a standard way. It's not as though, there's no way to define now. According to that, now is a time on the paradise day, and everything is someplace at that time. So we need to make that change in Einstein's theory and not have absolute relativity.
Okay, another question from Jan. He asked, do you consider the reality of the cosmos as a living entity?
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, the life has been here all along, just like, the cosmos couldn't have had a beginning as a whole, so yeah, I think the cosmos is a living entity, and including some non-living aspects or parts of it, but there's certainly life in the cosmos from the beginning. I don't see how life can be popping up out of the matter, as many physicists seem to think. And also, we need freedom of choice, and we have it because we're persons, and we have a way to inject spiritual energy from another outside of the material part of life. We have the ability to make a difference in the material side of things and avoid the idea that everything is determined from the past. We have a choice to make a change in the present that makes a difference in the future.
Okay, we've got a question from Merritt Horn. Could the sentence, quote, the automaton has paradise as its nucleus, unquote, be intended to be a straightforward description of the fact that each independent automaton moves in the universe on a circular path from paradise, rather than in the sense you've described?
I mean, I'm taking the statement that the automaton has paradise as its nucleus. That's just an axiom that I'm taking from the Urantia book. And it isn't only one statement. When they say that space seems to originate just below paradise, paradise has got to be above all space then, roughly speaking. So in that case, an automaton, a physical thing, must be close to its center, which is apparently a part of paradise, where it can be orbiting, and we can approach via the mid-space zones, a set of accumulation points of the mid-space area that we can approach the periphery of paradise, the peripheral zones. So, you know, the topology is something still to be worked out. I can't say I have it all in my head, but the notion of having paradise both a macroscopic focus as well as a microscopic focus, that appeals to me, because in God all things consist and have their being. So we need to realize, I guess, that our topology is pretty primitive right now.
All right, I think Jeff's up next.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about that time and motion and paradise. The way I like to envision it is that motion happens in lower paradise, or from lower paradise. The visibility of that motion happens from upper paradise. So in other words, if you can see the motion that's happening from lower paradise, you can count time. You can see the motion. So I think of time as a sense of motion of sand dripping or clocks ticking or cesium-133 atoms vibrating. You can see motion. So from upper paradise, you can see the motion from lower paradise. Okay, now picture that same thing from an altimeton perspective. Then the altimeton is the first seeable element. So if you think of the first seeable element as infinite frequencies on paradise and then descending to lower frequencies to Planck's constant size frequency of altimetons, you then get the same picture. You can see it. The first motion you can see is that same kind of analogy. So us being the shadow from that ultimatonic vibrational energy. If you think of the vacuum energy as the fundamental field and the ultimaton as the ripple in that field, but that vacuum field is paradise or comes from paradise. So I think we have to think in terms of more dimensionality than just two-dimensionality. 7 dimensions is an incredible number for me to get my head around. Anyway, excellent presentation. Good mental gymnastics, and I look forward to more.
Go ahead, Dick.
I thought the presentation was great, and I particularly appreciated the talk about minds. And I particularly appreciated, Phil, when you brought up David Bohm and his book, a seminal work of 30 years ago or so, Wholeness in the Implicate Order was the title of the book. And people characterized his writings then talking about the holographic nature of reality. And, you know, when you stop for a moment and think about some of these topographical challenges that the Urantia book brings up, a universe's hologram is, in my mind at least, a helpful metaphor. And I think Bohm points the way towards an improvement in our topographic understanding of where we are. Interestingly enough, he was also a devotee of Janu Krishnamurti, so he was a physicist who was not uninterested in high things.
Thanks, Dick. All right. Don Crownover has been making some really good observations, Phil, and so I'm just going to read to you what he has said. It's the Melchizedeks have termed the material of paradise is ultimatum. So the ultimaton is of these properties to the farthest parts of the master universe. So the space exploration is a single motion, no beginning or ending. And then he says, paradise residents move around and have occasions of worship, but they do not experience time.
They
So-
may experience time by volition.
Okay. That's a good way to absolutely.
I mean, it says so.
Okay, this is from Jan again. The nether paradise have control on all material matter in the cosmos. The upper paradise control now only 5% of this matter, Havona and the 7 super universes. Do you think that to achieve balance, the evolution of mind is growing?
There's a statement in there that the paradise gravity is, I guess, only about 5% has been used.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's plenty of possibility for more material in the outer space levels to show up. But I can't quite grasp the question enough to say anything.
Right. Yeah, I didn't. I wish I could clarify it more. However, let's move on because time is ticking. Tom, please.
Hey, Phil, some people who philosophize about quantum think there's going to be multiverses. Now, how does your model fit in with multiverses? I'd love to know what you think about that.
Well, I think multiverses have been conceived because, well, one of the reasons is because with a Big Bang cosmology, people are asking, well, wait a minute, was there a previous existence before 13.8 billion years, or what? Where did that, come from? We think of things as having starts, origins, instead of a cosmos that is eternal. I think it's a lot easier to think of the cosmos as eternal, as the Urantia Book says. Paradise and Havona, with its billion worlds, are eternal. There's no time when they began, as opposed to the notion of, well, yeah, we had a Big Bang, and well, maybe we had a Big Bang, and now we're going to have a collapse and get another one. The other possibility is, how do you have choices in the cosmos? Instead of saying, well, we have spiritual energy that we can introduce, so therefore not violate the notion that a body in motion continues in motion unless acted upon by an outside force, and in a straight line, unless acted upon by an outside force. Well, the outside force could be our spiritual side of us. Our personality can access that spiritual side and interject some energy into the material side of things. So the multi-universe idea is, as one of them anyway, is that, well, everything possible is somewhere being expressed. That doesn't appeal to me particularly. We never can get to those other multi-universes, and it's just a pure hypothesis in order to somehow or other allow for alternate possibilities. But I don't know that it gives us any choices. But I think we do have choice, and that's our experience. And the physicists who say, "Oh no, we're just determined. Everything is determined from the past," they don't live that way. I don't even think they believe it. But maybe they have to in order to keep their jobs. Otherwise, they'll have to be saying something that sounds religious. Oh God.
Yeah, that would horrify all their colleagues. Rick Warren had asked a question: are quantum entanglements, or is quantum entanglement and and the Urantia revelations totally compatible? Are they compatible? Now, we already talked about possibly reflectivity being one of the ways that you can look at entanglement. Can you maybe give other examples, or where you think there is a convergence with the book and where you think there's divergence from what's in the Urantia book?
Well, I think quantum entanglement can be expressed as David Bohm did, the physicist, by saying that there's some kind of a pre-mass energy. Maybe that's what's in space. And therefore, if it's pre-mass, vibrations could go faster than the speed of light. So in the case of the two split experiments, where they send one photon at a time, they go through one or the other, but somehow in the background that makes an interference pattern, as though it was all liquid was going through and forming interference patterns. Well, he does it by having these guiding waves, so that the waves go through and they make it possible for the particle to be guided to hit the background and form an interference pattern, and as though it's somehow there ahead of time. Well, what is there ahead of time are these guiding waves. They are the ones who can cause quantum entanglement, so that when you make two measurements at different places simultaneously, they're affecting each other. A measurement at one place affects the measurement at another place relatively instantaneously. So I think there's a lot of ways that the Urantia book says that things can move faster than the speed of light. We have beings, and I think some of the energy can be moved faster than the speed of light. Not apparently particles of mass. As we push particles of mass fast to move faster and faster, they get heavier and heavier, and they have more energy, in other words. But they don't get that energy in linear motion. I think they're getting it in circular motion within the particle that's being accelerated, and that energy can be recovered on the other side. So we know that the energy has definitely been added to the particle, but we can't seem to get it to go any faster than close to the speed of light. I mean, I know these things are happening. We've had these experiments to show that, sure enough, the particle can be approach the speed of light, but what happens is it turns into mass rather than linear motion. And mass can be basically, inertial mass. Something is spinning in there like mad, and that's energy.
David Newfer, actually, one of our other presenters, is sitting backstage and feeding and asking me questions at the same time. It says, are the three phases of the 10 energies from paradise, physical, morontial, and spiritual, are these three similar phases of automatons? In other words, I guess, can you relate those levels of energy to different levels of, with the automatons?
David, I don't know. That's something I don't have an opinion about yet, but I'll think about it. How do we maybe relate those those energies to the ultimate time.
He just sent me a huge smiley face. So there you go. Okay, what a great discussion, guys. It's been a lot of fun.